A regional Iraqi election candidate has narrowly escaped an attempt on his life after a bomb found in his home was disarmed. Others have been less fortunate. 5 candidates were killed in assassinations, bombings and raids this month. The attacks target both officials and voting stations and are believed to be the work of Al-Qaeda cells. Live now to former MI5 agent Annie Machon. Ms. Machon, attacks like this have been intensifying recently. What's the end game here?
I'm not even sure if there is an end game. Unfortunately, by the West intervening in Iraq through an illegal war 10 years ago, we've now seen a massive destabilization of the old structures and no real meaningful new structures put in place. So it's not just the politicians who are under threat, but vast segments of other areas of society too. So although say that Saddam was an odious dictator, for the vast majority of people under him, he did provide stability. And since he was removed, they have lost that stability, as well as losing most of the basic infrastructure which kept their society running. I mean, just things like proper hospitals, schools, even just water and sewage works and things like that have been decimated and not rebuilt appropriately following the American and Western intervention. And of course, this has led to social destabilization, but also health issues, education issues. I mean, there was a cholera outbreak a few years ago. So the country has been wrecked, really, by the West's intervention.
Now, these killings I mean, we've had over 245, I think, something like that just this month. They're targeting local people, they're targeting politicians. Who's actually to gain from all the killings?
It's a very good question. I mean, you had a piece about Syria just before this, and we could look at any of the other Western interventions as well in Middle Eastern countries. It allows an incursion by security companies and security forces from the West, which can be very good for big business from Western companies that provide that security. And it can also mean that instability allows the resources of that country to flow out of that country with little oversight. But for the people who live there, it's become very, very difficult. I would say, though, that sort of casting back, I think it's very ironic that the West intervened in order to provide democracy, freedom to the Iraqi people, and yet the West intervened in a highly undemocratic and totally illegal way. It was a done deal cooked up between George Bush and Tony Blair 11 years ago, which was then forced through our Western democratic systems with no say-so. Many millions of us marched against the incursion into Iraq, and yet it went ahead. So for countries that take an illegal step, an illegal decision to go to war against Iraq in an undemocratic way, to then justify it as giving democracy to Iraq, I think is flagrant hypocrisy.
Okay, so we have 21,000 candidates competing now in this upcoming election in April. Can we take that then as a good sign of democracy? Is that not what they wanted for the country?
Well, it depends how you define democracy. I mean, it's great that people are stepping forward and they want to represent their constituencies. But if you can't guarantee that democracy will be democratically elected, you can't guarantee that people are not afraid to go and vote. You can't guarantee there won't be oppression and violence around that process. And you can't guarantee as well that the people who are then elected have real powers to represent their constituents. Then it's not a real democracy. It's just yet another oligarchy. It's another dictatorship imposed on the hapless people.
Annie Machon, a former MI5 agent, thank you for your insight and time.